the last Double Apocalypse, we got 31 hec, and on this one we got 35.8 hec unpackaged beer. That's a big difference. We were approached about brewing this beer and talked about it internally and decided it sounded like something we'd be game to try. I think any brewer would probably have one or two lauters in their past that did not go well, and they've sat and asked themselves why, what could we have changed, or what went wrong. Or on the flip side, there are a few things that a brewer might want to try, but is too hesitant to try because they know deep down inside that it will go wrong, or that they'll be flirting with some kind of danger, or disaster, rather. And so we tick the boxes, both those boxes. We've had bad lauters in the past, and there are some oaty, weedy beers that we would like to brew that we were a little bit too traumatized to try. And so when we were approached about this product, or this concept where we could try to brew a highly efficient beer with enzymes that would help address some of those fears or concerns, that sounded tempting. And then coupling that with these hop products, Incognito and Spectrum, respectively, both products that we have prior experience with, we thought that it could be pretty interesting to tie all that stuff up together, and then pretty much make a clone of an existing core beer that we have, and try to really meter how different the end product becomes in terms of, packaging yield, and I suppose hop intensity and just general deliciousness. So that was our starting point. We bit on that concept, and yeah, we took our core beer, a beer called Double Apocalypse, which is 100% mosaic beer. We did decide, instead of just making it the same beer and calling it a different thing, that we would change up the hop varieties to give consumers a different product, but that the grists would be the same, and the ABVs would be the same, the target gravities would be the same. And so we had, luckily, we had a Double Apocalypse brew day scheduled. And we did the brew, didn't try to alter it, didn't try to push it, didn't try to do anything. Took all our usual notes. And then about 2 weeks later, brewed a beer that at that point didn't quite have a name, but we brewed the collab beer and recorded everything. Added our enzymes on that day, and added the Incognito on that day, and everything went well. I suppose the first thing we were looking at is, how well is this thing going to lauter? We had a malt bill that had 20% wheat and 8% flaked oats, so not too crazy, but it's pretty proteinaceous. And it's been one of our slower lauters because of that grain bill, and because it is a higher gravity beer. We're targeting 18 Plato at the end. Yeah, when we brewed our Double Apocalypse, we did it in 2 hours and 35 minutes. We have an automated brew house, so that recipe is pretty much dialed in for that brew to work pretty well. It's not fast, but it's non-interventionist. With the lean green, we decided to do the same thing, same recipe on our computer, but we were going to be prepared to try to coax it to be a more aggressive lauter, increase the flow rate, open some valves a little bit more aggressively. And we were able to trim off a total of 20 minutes from that lauter, so down from 235 to 215. And the brewer responsible for that lauter reckons that had they been more audacious early on, that they could have trimmed off a few more minutes, even still. So the lautering went super well. The only good things to say there. Extract was up. Our pre-wort extract had risen from 21.9 to 22.7. And then our last runnings were also a little bit lower. So we seem to get more extract out of this bill. After that, everything's pretty much the same. You know, if we boil it, we add a marginal amount of hops. We cool down the wort, as most brewers do brewing these hazy IPAs right now, and we knock it out into the whirlpool. But when we knock it out into the whirlpool, that's when we're adding our incognito. A very easy to add product, liquid hop extract that readily wants to get out of the container. So not your old school CO2 extract that gets all over your fingers. So we poured it in. We had a small jug of warm wort that we just put back into the empty container, swirled it around, got every last drop in. And that was that. That was very easy. We tried to replicate our T90 and BBC Whirlpool hopping edition with an incognito replacement rate. So we'd gone with 3 kg, which is an awkward number, but we went for 3 kg of incognito and 5 kg of BBC. So BBC is also a BarthHaas product. They could probably explain it much better than me, but it's T90, but better.
That explains it all. That is just what it is.
And yeah, we're really happy with it. So we did that. The other exciting thing that happened at the Whirlpool stage is we have a flow meter between our kettle and our Whirlpool on our brew house. And we see the volume that is cast out to the Whirlpool, and at that point, we're able to cross-reference our volume with our post-boil gravity, and at that point, we'll make any adjustments if we need to. Generally, we will do a post-boil dilution to correct for any kind of slight variations, but mostly just to increase our brew length, try to get a little bit more volume out of every brew. And that's specifically important on high gravity beers where it's pretty hard to do that. We have to squeak out every little bit of extract from our grist in order to get 18 Plato, to get 42 heck of 18 Plato. But we were able to get an additional 2 heck between the last Double Apocalypse and the Lean Green, which was huge. And so not only are we sitting with 2 additional hectoliters of wort in the Whirlpool, but instead of 15 kg of hop matter in the bottom of our admittedly undersized Whirlpool, there was just 5 kilos of hops and some incognito that is just now in the beer. So it's going to be easier for us to get that into the fermenter and not incur losses there. So that happened. Unfortunately, and admittedly, we don't have a flow meter between Whirlpool and FV, so I could not tell you what the amount is that we recovered different there. But we got more in the Whirlpool, and I know we got more out of the Whirlpool. It was one of our, generally when we do hoppy beers, our hop cone that we get in the middle likes to collapse and cover up the lower valves from which we can collect wort. We went all the way to the bottom, and we were able to collect dry. So that doesn't happen usually. Not unless we're brewing a lager, which we don't do. That was big. So that was all brew day stuff, right? Everything after that, no, this beer is a little bit different. After that comes the next edition, which is Spectrum. Spectrum we have trialed in the past. Rather than maybe going through those trials now, we can maybe touch on them when it's natural. But based off previous things we had done before, we decided to add our spectrum early. We did not add it the next day. We added it the day after that. So not quite as early as we had done one time, but not nearly as late as another time. And just after that, we added the our BBC and T90 pellets. So for Double Apocalypse, we have a total of 20 grams per liter dry hop. It's 80 kilos that go into a 40 hect fermenter. Here, we decided to go for kind of like a 50-50 split. So we kept 40 kilos of T90/BBC pellets in the dry hop, and then went for 5 kilos of spectrum. For us, that was a very different approach than what we have been doing. Most of our approaches have been spectrum heavy, if you will. This was a bit more balanced. This spectrum also, it was one of the easier spectrums to add to the fermenter. It's texture-wise, it's quite thick, but we have a hop gun. So it's an external glorified slurry tank, I suppose, for the people that are unfamiliar. We purge it, and we took our spectrum, added it in, and had some deaerated water that we then mixed in to get any remaining extract that had clung to the sides of the vessel out, so we can get every drop out into the hop gun, and then put that into the fermenter, and then we repeated that later on with the traditional T90 and BBC pellets. We dry hop warm, so we let the fermentation finish out, any kind of hop creep finish out. Cooled it down. We did our standard conditioning time just because we couldn't squeeze it out any faster, even though we probably could have turned this beer over faster. And in the end, we got more beer in cans than we were also used to. So on the last Double Apocalypse, we got 31 hec, and on this one, we got 35.8 hec unpackaged beer. That's a big difference. Admittedly, the yield on the last Double Apocalypse was a little bit lower than it should have been. It's usually a 32 hec beer, but we're comparing those two beers because those two beers, everything's the same about them. The malt from the same bulk silo delivery. The specialty malts are from the same pallets of specialty malts. So if we're going to just compare like for like, that was the difference. But in any case, we've never brewed a double IPA with more than 35 hec yield out of 40. Those are the numbers. Numbers don't lie.
So you've added spectrum on what, day 3?
Day 2. I mean, if brew day is day 0.
Yeah.
It's 2 days after the brew day.
Yeah.
And when did the pellets go in?
Right after the next day.
So day 3.
Yeah.
And that's what you normally do as well. Normally you would just put everything in on day 3.
Yeah, 3 or 4. Yeah.
So, Matt, is this the most efficient double IPA you have ever brewed?
Well, I can't say for sure. But I do think for us, we brewed a handful of double IPAs, some that are ones that we know inside and out because we brew them quite regularly, and some that are one-off experiments or forays into the unknown. This one was a little bit of the latter, but we've never had a beer as big as this produce as much of this in as little time as this. So our brewers were able to lauter more quickly. I imagine that we'd be able to pass this through the cellar more quickly. And in the end, I suppose it would take a packaging team a little bit longer to package it. It's the whole team. But then we look outside of our brewery to some of the stuff in the UK and we're like, man, how are they coming up with that? It's just becoming full sentences now.
Yep.
Got a really nice haze. going on. Is that comparable to what you'd normally get in Double Apocalypse?
Yeah, it's comparable for our bigger beers. Our bigger beers tend to, if I can say it, I feel like glow a little bit more than the 14 Plato beers.
Maybe the hops guys can talk a little bit about the taste or the smell, head note or something.
Yeah, I'll just say out loud, I don't know if anybody has it on there in front of them, but here's what's in the dry hop, I suppose. 5 kilos of Citra Spectrum. And then we've got 20 kilos of Mosaic BBC, 15 kilos of Citra BBC, and 5 kilos of an Enigma T90. So you got 40 kilos traditional hops, and then the 5 kilos trying to replace 40 kilos. Double Apocalypse would be a Mosaic 80 kilos.
I mean, what I can comment to this beer, I really like it, and I was a little bit shocked when I first tried it. Also, a few weeks ago, it arrived here, and I opened it right away and drank a can. I was surprised how refreshing and easy drinkable it is, considering the gravity and considering the ABV. So super cool, super drinkable, fantastic flavor. I was super happy. I was that night having this beer at home in front of the TV.
I've not tried it before, so this is the first time I'm trying it. I'm smelling it. I think it smells really good. I get like orange notes and big fruity peach.
I feel like there's passion fruit as well from the aroma.
That's cheating, Jocelyn, right? You're looking up the flavors, isn't it?
I'm actually writing down what people are saying.
Okay.
This is the bit that I'm really interested in. And Matt, in terms of sensory sweetness, how do you feel that compares to your Double Apocalypse? I mean, I've had Double Apocalypse, but it's been a while.
Yeah, this is, I would say it comes across a bit less sweet than Double Apoc does for us.
Because I feel it's quite dry for Double IPA, actually.
That is what I personally enjoy a lot, because it makes it really drinkable, easily drinkable, and you can enjoy more than one if you can handle it.
Be sitting down.
Yeah. We do the hazy beers, but we don't make chewy hazy beers. We try to make them softer, but our hazy beers they're still a little bit different than I think I don't know, maybe what some breweries or some consumers kind of put up there as like the benchmark of what the style is supposed to be. But we sort of like having, I don't want to say an edge to it, but they're going to counterbalance, I suppose. It's really hoppy. It's not as bitter as what Double IPA used to be, but it's easy to drink a couple of these. For me, I think I can't say I pick up a whole bunch of it right now, but the tasting notes from the brewery were big pineapple early on. I'm not getting a lot of that.
I mean, it can be that freshness and that just bright fruitiness can be.
So I'm gonna go and kind of bring in the other two beers that we've done before and with Spectrum. Some of my feedback on those has been we've only used Mosaic Spectrum until this brew. but there's still plenty of mosaic in here, and the spectrum in here is Citra. We use a lot of Citra. It's the second hop we use the most. For me, one of the things I've said is I don't think we've cracked the code yet on how to get the flavor that we are expecting yet with Spectrum. I said that after the second brew even. But on those two brews, we were using a lot more Spectrum and a lot less traditional hop. This is a 50-50 blend. I feel like this was close to what I imagine a Citra, Mosaic, touch of Enigma beer would taste like. I guess that's not surprising, using less of a new ingredient and being less surprised by the outcome. But it seems like, yeah, at least being in this 50-50 range, which is sort of the place we kind of fell. That was after it was also after the group chat that we had, where it seemed like a lot of people were using it more the Spectrum in that kind of proportion than what we were doing. So that's why we were keen to give it yet another go in that frame. And yeah, to my liking, it was more familiar. Still probably a little bit of a learning curve we have, but it's a one-off beer, so we have a lot of flexibility. Still pretty fruity. And that's effectively what we're going for.
It's cool having you two on the call. You're much more experienced in describing beers. You know, I do it only once or twice a year. So what I meant is actually the dryness, which I really much appreciated in this beer. Is it different to the other beers, Matt, the dryness? I mean, did you do something different? Is it coming from the enzyme? Is it coming from the process, or is it coming from the hops?
No, we didn't do anything different. It was our standard approach to brewing an IPA, a double IPA. We brew double IPAs. We don't brew as much of them as we do other styles because traditionally the yield wouldn't be as great. But yeah, it's a big beer that finishes with a low gravity. This is sort of what they taste like coming from us. I couldn't even imagine what the yield would be like if we had to get 25 Plato starting gravity in a beer that finished at 8 Plato, or whatever it would take to get 8% or 9%. Yeah, we have to squeeze every little bit out just to get 18 Plato. Or not 18. We're getting higher than that. We're getting, what is it? We're getting 20.1, but we water it down. We post-boil dilute to get more volume. So no, I think it's characteristic of an Amundsen beer. Yeah.
I think I couldn't say is much of a difference to a beer that is only brewed with very traditional ingredients. But then I think there's a good thing because you have pretty much a similar product, but in the background in the brewery, your savings are just what really counts, the increased efficiency. And if the product then, or if the beer just tastes the same like it always does, and it tastes like an Amundsen beer, it's a big win, I think.
Yeah, if we get more beer, but we haven't sacrificed anything on flavor, that in itself is a win. And then if everybody's lives are made easier, if the cellarman has to spend less time, skimming hops off an empty tank, or if the brewer has to spend less time watering, all those minutes add up.
And since you have the new canning line now, those extra 4 hectoliters are going to be packed in seconds.
Exactly. It's like they won't even know.
In terms of the color, is that where it should be?
Yeah, I would say this is what we would expect. Again, I think or it depends on what you mean by should be. The other two Spectrum beers we've seen a color pickup from the Spectrum. We saw that again, I feel, but not as much.
And this is a color that you say it looks like you would want it to look. Basically, it might be a little bit darker than without Spectrum, but I personally think it has a really nice glow to it.
I think the glow is the thing, and I think that it looks great. If you could kind of capture that across everything, I'd be really happy. No, we're happy with that color.
Yeah, but I really agree with you, Alex. It does drink really well for an 8.5% beer. It is a bit dangerous because sometimes those tend to be a bit syrupy. What you don't have in this at all, but I think Double Apocalypse doesn't really have that either, is some double IPAs are really ethanolic to the point that it's almost solventy. It's almost like an estery solventy taste, and they become a bit syrupy, and this doesn't have that at all. And I think, Double Apocalypse also doesn't, because like you say, your beers tend to be drier than some of the others on the market. Yeah. But I sometimes struggle with double IPAs that are sort of like syrup, that you feel that you can't really even swallow them properly.
The team's not here to speak for themselves. They're busy canning. But the feedback that we got from the team is, a highly drinkable double IPA. Your average beer fan might really, really love double IPAs, but I think my experience is people working in the industry don't really like to drink them as much. They want to drink something a little bit more sessionable, something they can drink a lot more of. And so the team they were saying some of these things that we're hearing right here, that this drinks pretty well for a beer this size. So that's a big compliment for the team. They're always looking for their 4% IPA, or always going on about a fest beer or a lager or something. But to have the team on board with 8.5% double IPA is a nice internal win. Yeah, for us, I think I've probably said a lot of these things before to you guys in different forums. We don't add a lot of hops to the Whirlpool, or we don't add as many hops to the Whirlpool as our brewer's gut or heart wants us to, because we're going to lose a lot of yields there. And that's just, it's exponential on the big beers. The big beers where we struggle to even get a post-boil dilution, like your Double Apocalypse. If you're going to go heavy on the Whirlpool edition, you might as well just say goodbye to that. Not that everything's about yield, but we don't want to go through, it hurts to go through the steps of brewing a beer and allocating a whole fermenter to something, knowing that you're just going to knock out, a fraction of what you could from the Whirlpool, and then let that sit in the cellar for a couple of weeks, and then package that and say, there's not enough beer to go around for everybody. So we try to get as much as we can out of every brew, and the incognito definitely helps with that. And not only does it help get more, it allows us to add the amount of hops that we kind of really want to use in the first place. We would love to use Whirlpool hops at a 5 to 7 gram per liter range. Usually it's around 3.5. So.
Ned, you mentioned in the beginning that the beer you used as kind of the basis for this collaboration brew was quite a regular one, and you have a lot of experience, and you knew what to expect more or less. So after this brew and seeing all this, efficiency increase on both ends in final beer, but also in the brew house, any crazy ideas in your head what you want to do next?
We want to do a big Odie beer, see how many oats we can put in the beer. That beer is currently in the cellar right now.
Okay.
We did a beer with 35% oats. We used enzymes for that because we had some to spare. Since the beer is still in the cellar, the brew sheet is there, but I know that the lauter went very well. It was less than 2 hours. It was a normal say gravity. I think I should have brought it up. It didn't strike me that I'd be talking about it right now. But there's like 14 and a half Plato. And we used a combination of malted oats and flaked oats that totaled about 35%. And then on top of that, there's also about 10% wheat. And yeah, it went pretty well. Again, the feedback from the brewers was didn't know what to expect. So we played it cautious in the beginning. Reckon we could go faster if we did it again. So that's what you want to hear. We've had some brews in the distant memory now where we tried to like 40% on just flaked oats, which is in retrospect stupid, but we knew it was stupid at the time. And yeah, you're talking like 6 hours lautering, 7 hours lautering, right? But we haven't done that in 3 or 4 years. But it's kind of just sat there. It's like that. Everybody kind of remembers that beer fondly and says that 6-7 hours was worth it. So let's try something different. So we mixed it with some malted oats. It was nice. Or the brew was nice. It's sitting in the cellar now, conditioning. When the new canning line's been fully commissioned, it'll probably be one of the first 440 cans to get packaged. That'd be cool. Yeah. We still have some. We've got a few more silly ideas. We brew a lot of like high gravity beers that aren't pale, and we kind of want to explore that a little bit more. See what we can do with our darker stuff.
Have you got a fun name for your oat beer yet?
No, it's one of those ones. It's like everybody was having an off day, so it's got a name, but nothing to write home about. Nah, not a good one. It's not the Green Lupulin Machin.